In this tutorial video, we will demonstrate how to use Page Generator Pro to mass build location pages for a single service. In this example, we are a business that offers in-home healthcare agency, and we're based in Florida, USA. To do this, we will need some plugins and a theme or page builder. We'll be using the Ollie WordPress theme, which is free. You're free to use any of the supported page builders that we offer. There are 25 plus at the time of recording this video, including Elementor, Divi, Oxygen, and more. You'll need our Page Generator Pro plugin. You'll need a suitable contact form plugin. We'll use WP Forms Lite because it's free, but you can use your own, whether it's Gravity Forms, Contact Form 7, or something else. And for SEO, we will use Yoast SEO. Again, Page Generator Pro supports a number of SEO plugins, including all-in-one SEO, Rank Math, and others. Very simple site structure that I would use for this. We'll have our homepage, which demonstrates or rather describes our service. A contact page where the telephone number, address, and a contact form will be. And then we'll move on to the location pages and the search pages. And these are the areas where Page Generator Pro comes into play and we can use to mass generate those pages. Moving over to the WordPress site, I've gone ahead and set up the two pages for the homepage and contact us. And if we have a quick look at these by editing them, we can see that we have the title, some content, a phone number, link to contact us page. We've got some content about the business or service that we offer rather, what we do, call to action, some statistics. Always good to have testimonials, and then a call to action at the end of the screen. For the contact page, we've got very basic information, telephone, address, and the WP Forms contact form. You could put a map here or anything else. These are both manually created pages, so we're not using Page Generator Pro because we're not looking to mass generate these two sections here. If you are fairly new to WordPress and you want to set a page to be your home page, you can go to Settings and Reading, select the Static Page option here, and then choose the existing page that you built as the home page. Make sure you click Save Changes when done. Moving on to Yoast SEO, we have a separate video that covers how to configure this in more detail, but with any SEO plugin, I would recommend that we run through this configuration very quickly. Walk through the plugin screens to make sure that the basics are there. Put your website name in, tagline, so South Florida's best in-home healthcare agency. Make sure you select a suitable site image, which will be your logo or similar. If you're happy with everything, save changes. Most SEO plugins have similar settings for this. Most importantly, run through your content types. So the homepage will be done by the homepage itself. For pages, you'll have some sensible defaults. For content groups, most important here, make sure we don't show them in results. So the content groups in Page Generator Pro act as a template from which we will generate our physical WordPress pages. So we don't need the content group to display in the search engine results because our results will be actual physical WordPress pages. Same goes for taxonomy groups. If you ever see this, just make sure that this is deselected so they don't appear in the sitemap or search engine results. If we move on to Page Generator Pro itself, if you haven't done so already, make sure to enter a license key in this section here. And I like to very quickly run through the plugin settings when I'm on a new project to make sure that some defaults and some API keys are set so I can get up to speed and generate my pages a bit quicker. I always set the country code to the country that the business is based in or the project that I'm working on. Other settings here are fine. I may sometimes wish to tweak the page drop-down field if I'm generating a lot of content, so you may want to use one of the other two options. And this helps the performance of Page Generator Pro and WordPress if you have a site with a lot of content. Moving to the Generate tab, I like to enable logging. By default, this is disabled. You can enable this and this will open up a menu here and we'll be able to see everything that we've generated. So here's some existing work I've done. These logs can be filtered, cleared, they can be exported as well. And this is great if you're an agency and you need to produce a report for your clients or an internal report on the work that's been done. Other settings I recommend keeping as their defaults. For generate locations, So this is where we can produce a list of locations, cities, towns, villages, counties, etc. that can be used as part of your mass page generation. By default, we provide you with our own Clio Rocket service that can do this. You may wish to select an AI provider if you prefer. Clio Rocket's best for more detailed data down to village or hamlet level, so very, very small settlements. If you want more generic or rather bigger cities, then you may wish to use one of the AI services. Clio Rocket can provide just the larger cities as well. I'll demonstrate how that works shortly in this video. For integrations, always recommend in today's age of AI to select an AI provider. We use OpenAI, but you're free to use any of the supported providers listed. If you do this, make sure to scroll to that section in the settings here and enter your applicable API key and choose a model. We do have documentation that covers the cheapest models to use, and this is particularly useful if you're going to be using a lot of AI in your content generation. For research, I like to specify a service, and we'll explain how the research tool works later on. But again, if we're using an AI service for integrations, you can use the same one here. And because you've already completed the API key and model, you'll see those populated. And the same goes for Spintax. I'd recommend using the same service here as you do for research and integrations. Thanks for bearing with us so far. We've gone through the prerequisites. So now let's focus on the location pages that we want to generate. On screen, we're in Page Generator Pro's keyword system, and this is a system that produces lists of data that the plugin can iterate through when it generates its content. We could click the Add Keyword option here and specify a list of the cities in Florida, but as my accent gives away, I'm not American and I don't know many locations in Florida. I could find this data online and import it by use of a CSV file or URL, but the best way by far would be to make use of the Generate Locations functionality. And this is where that Clio Rocket system or your AI provider of choice can be used to produce that list of locations for you. I always like to call my location keyword location. For output type, I'm looking to return a list of cities. So I'll click city along with their latitudes and longitudes. And because we cover multiple counties in Florida, we shall select the county output as well. The business is based in Florida, so I shall select the region or state of Florida. And this will ensure that we only return data within that location. I could add multiple states if I wanted to. I could filter this at county level, and I have got the option to exclude some locations should I wish. We spoke earlier about how Clio Rocket has a lot of location data right down to very, very small towns. If you want to include this, that's fine. You wouldn't need to define any other settings. In this tutorial, I want to focus on larger towns and cities that people will more likely require our services in. We'll go ahead and put 50,000. Alternatively, I could use a different provider for my location data, such as an AI service. That wouldn't give me these options here. However, it would give me the more well-known cities and towns instead. If I'm happy with my settings, I can click Generate Keyword with Locations, and we can see confirmation that that was generated successfully. And viewing the data gives us 107 locations within Florida meet that particular population criterion. Next, we'll move on to content groups, and content groups are the templates from which we generate content. So typically we would add a new content group, and we can start using the location keyword to have the software iterate through that data of locations when we generate pages. So I open the left curly brace, I can see a drop-down autocomplete. I'll select city name, for example. I could also have the county name in the title, put some content here. I can save my content group, and then I could go ahead, click the content group tab, scroll to the bottom and click generate via browser. And what this would do is it would iterate through all of those locations that we've just produced in the location keyword, produce me a page for every single one of them, and everything's done. However, we want to produce a site that's going to rank well, that visitors are going to interact with, and ultimately reach out to you as the business owner to ensure that you start getting some qualified leads and ultimately sales. To do this, I'm going to go back to the pages in WordPress because I really like the homepage that I've built. And I would quite like to use a very similar template to this for those location pages that I'm going to generate. To do this, on the Pages interface in WordPress, I can click this Import as Content Group option here. And we see after a moment, we're told that we have imported that to a content group. We are on the content group screen here. And we can see South Florida's Best Home Healthcare Agency is now a content group within this interface. I'll delete our other example that we produced, and we'll go and edit this content group now. Again, I want to make sure that instead of saying South Florida, I have the actual location for each of the location pages. So I'll open the left curly brace and I'll select the location city name, and I will end it with the county name here. I'll copy this to be the main title here, and I'm going to go through anywhere where I have South Florida and put the city name followed by the county name. We'll save our content group. And if we continue down the page, we then have the ability to perform some configuration for our SEO plugin. So we can see here the title needs to be updated. So I like to just go ahead and copy the page title that I've got here and scroll down to the SEO title and paste it there. We support keywords within most of the fields on the content group screen. So that includes your SEO plugin, any other plugins that you might be using, etc. The slug can be left empty. It will be pre-filled with the content group slug, but this isn't the one that's used for the generated pages. What you'll find that happens is that we'll actually use the permalink specified here instead. So this is the most important field to consider when it comes to the permalink. For the meta description, again, I'd like this to be specific to the location. So I'll go ahead and copy the SEO title, put it in there. Moving down to the description field, this is an internal description. I like to use this if I'm working with lots of content groups so I remember what I'm doing. So here I'm going to do location pages. Permalink is the most important one. So we want this to be unique, and on that basis I'm going to need to use keywords to ensure that I have the city and county name in that permalink. That guarantees we're not going to be producing duplicate pages at all. And I could prefix this with some information about the service. So we could go Best Home Healthcare Agency. Let's go ahead and do that. Best Home Care Health Agency. If we move down to the geolocation data, because we are working with locations and when we generated our keyword, we had latitudes and longitudes, we can open the left curly brace, select city latitude and city longitude. This will be useful later on in this tutorial when we look to do internal linking. For many of you, you'll probably have some form of tracking when it comes to telephone numbers and things, or other scripts that you'd like to include. You can put these in the header and footer code if you want these to only be on the generated location pages. If you want these site-wide, you can go ahead and put those applicable scripts in your theme or a third-party plugin. I typically will leave author and discussion settings as default because we're working with pages. And if we move over to the right-hand side, we can see the publish section tells us what we're generating. So we want to generate pages, what we want to do. So what's the status? We want them to be published. You can set these as scheduled with an increment. So if, for example, I had an increment of 1 day, what would happen is we would generate all pages, but their publication dates would be staggered. So the first one would publish today, the second page would publish tomorrow, third location would publish in 2 days' time, etc. To be clear, this will still generate all pages now. However, the publication date will be set for the future, and that then allows WordPress to handle that post-transition from when a post or page is scheduled to published. There isn't any hard evidence that publishing all of your pages at once causes a detrimental effect for SEO. However, if you do prefer to drip feed the content that you're producing, you may wish to use this setting here. For now, we'll go ahead and set that to publish. Moving down, I like method to always be all. For overwrite, I typically select yes if the existing page is generated by this group. And what this means is if I regenerate these pages in the future, the software will go and check whether the page already exists, and if so, was it generated by Page Generated Pro? And if it was, we'll go ahead and overwrite that page with the newer content. We do have some granular controls on how we can do that. I like to enable all of these by default. So when I am regenerating content, I might, for example, want to change my titles, but not the content itself. I could untick this option and it wouldn't overwrite the content on those pages. Equally, if I'm happy with my titles and I made an update to the content section, I could untick title and enable content for that overwriting. Again, if you're new to the software and you're not too sure about this section, you can leave them all ticked and that will be fine to get started. We'll keep the other settings as they are, and if I'm happy with everything, I shall go ahead and save. 1.2 note is the template option here. So if we look towards the top, I've selected a template of page full width, no title, and this comes with the theme that I'm using. If you're using a page builder such as Elementor, you shall have some options as well. You may define that template option within the Elementor builder. But it's also important to make sure the same setting or the same value for that template setting is defined here. So in this case, because I want to use the full width no title template, I must select it here as well. It's not enough to only select it in template options here. With everything done, I can go ahead and produce a test. If I scroll down to the bottom here and click test and click OK. And the test system is really useful because it will produce one page in test mode, replacing those keywords with location data. So we can see here we have the first location has been used. And if we walk through, we can see that we've got Orange County. We can see that those keywords have been replaced. However, this is still not unique enough content. It's very repetitive. If we were to generate all of these pages, we're probably going to be hit with a duplicate penalty because a lot of the content is very, very similar. With that in mind, we have some tools that can help you produce unique content without you having to manually figure out what to write. The first is the ability to generate Spintax from selected text. If you're new to Spintax, it's a way to produce random non-uniform text based on what we select. So if I select this section here, we can see we have these curly braces, and hovering over that shows that it's called Generate Spintax from Selected Text. If we click this button, the software will go off to the AI service. It will generate a Spintax version of that content. And we can see this because we have the curly braces with some words inside. Curly braces can be used for either keywords or Spintax, and the software will figure out what you're telling it, whether it's a keyword that you want to use or whether it's Spintax. In this example here, when we generate a page, the software would walk through and say it will use either whether or if as this word, and it would pick one of these three here, and it would do the same walking through all of these as it goes. Another method is to make use of Page Generator Pro's AI dynamic element. So if we click on the blue plus here and we search for AI, we can see here we have an AI block, and we click that and it inserts the dynamic element here. And this allows us to instruct the AI service that we selected earlier, in this case OpenAI, to display content based on the topic. What I would do here is I would take this text out, I would click on the dynamic element, go over to topic and paste in the text that I've got, and then prefix it with write about how your facility deserves dependable professional caregivers, etc. We can also add additional instructions, and these are kind of information that tell the AI what the context is. This will apply to the topic and will make sure that there's some context to the content that is being produced. For the content type itself, because we are looking at paragraphs here, I would select the paragraph option and I will set a word limit and probably keep this fairly short, maybe 75 words. For our third and final block here, we'll go ahead and once again use the Generate Spintax option. And if we save our changes, we can now generate our test and have a look at the output this time. So if we scroll down to our section here, we now have some content that's a bit more unique, and to quickly check that, we can go ahead and compare that to the homepage. So as a reminder, this is our homepage where we have the three sections here. And if we scroll down here and do a quick comparison of the first one, we can see that we've got We Design Personalized Care Plans, whereas on the homepage we have We Create Personalized Care Plans. If we move to the middle block, because we've used AI, you can see the difference. We get far more personalized content that's far more unique than what we had here. So my recommendation is, where possible, to use AI if we're dealing with a block of content, whereas Spintax is better suited to very short pieces of content, perhaps the odd sentence or two. With that in mind, we can go back and make some further improvements to our content group. So here, for example, I could use Spintax for all of my headings. So they're going to be at random. They're going to be quite different for each of our generated pages. I'm also going to walk through and do the same for all of the headings that we have in the content. For this section here, I think we'd again really benefit from using AI. We have a title and some content. So we'll enter a new block after here, select the AI block, and we'll click on it here and click the block tab. I'll copy the text and we'll make use of that as the topic and prefix it with write about how IHHA delivers. We can safely remove this content here. And because on the AI dynamic element, we're using the content type of article, we don't need a heading because the article type will include headings for us. It will go ahead and take out that blank paragraph and the heading. We'll just have our AI dynamic element. And I think another way to really boost search engine results is to figure out what people might be searching for when it comes to this particular service. And the best way to do that is to have an FAQ section. So we'll duplicate our testimonials area, and on the duplicated copy here, we'll take out the existing content that we had. And instead of a paragraph, we can once again select an AI element. And I've gone ahead and entered a topic and some instructions and some context regarding the business. And for the content type, I shall select FAQs. When I do this, our limit becomes the number of question answer pairs that will be displayed. So I think 5 will be a suitable number. I'll go ahead and click save. And with these improvements, we can click on the content group tab, scroll down and click the test button once more. With our test page generated, we can now see that the Spintax is being applied to our headings. We can also see our content here. And if we walk down the page, we've got our AI article that includes the headings and content, talks about the business's standout features. And if we go beyond the testimonials, we'll then have our frequently asked questions about finding the best in-home healthcare agency. So again, we're going to start ranking for words like this because we're including them in titles. And we can see here that we have the questions and answers. You'll notice when we configured these AI dynamic elements that we provided some instructions and context in the instructions field here. And if we scroll up to our AI dynamic element here, we did the same. Whilst this is great for that granular control for individual elements, we may want to have this context globally and to make sure it applies to all dynamic elements. For example, here I forgot to put those instructions in. So to provide some global instructions, we can navigate to the plugin settings. And on the integrations tab, we have an AI instructions field here. And if anything specified here, it will be included with every single call to AI when we use that dynamic element. We can still specify additional instructions here on top of that, but this is a great way to put any business information or context that you feel is important to any of the AI content that you produce. So let's go ahead and go to our FAQ. We'll remove the instructions there. We will also remove the instructions there as well. And on our settings screen, we will put the context here. We'll save our changes to both the settings and the content group. And we click the content group tab and we preview our test. You can see we have some AI content there. We have the reference to the company here. And most importantly, we can see an example of how that instruction context was used. It formed one of the frequently asked questions and shows that we've been operating for 15 years and we provide 24/7 service. We can also use AI for images. So here, for example, we have a stock image. However, the quality is not very good, and I'd quite like to have something that's a little bit better. To do this, we'll go up to where that image is, and we will delete it. And in its place, we'll click the plus icon, and we can choose an AI image dynamic element. In Page Generator Pro, we have several available, including Gemini AI and OpenAI. I personally like to use Gemini AI. I think it produces some really realistic images. And if we click on this and then the block tab in the right-hand sidebar, again, similar to the AI dynamic element, we can enter a topic, and this is the prompt to instruct Gemini to produce the image that we require. So here I've produced the topic that I'd like. I can also choose an aspect ratio if I wish. And if I click on the Output tab, I can determine the image size that I'd like to produce, and these are the sizes registered in WordPress. I can also provide some metadata, including the title, caption, and alt tag. And these are really important for SEO. So for title, if we click this field, we can see that our keywords are available. So what I'd like to do typically is select the city keyword because that's what we're working on, and then do in-home healthcare agency. And the caption could be something along the lines of working in location city name. The alt tag should describe the image, so our staff helping our patients in, and again, I like to use the city name where possible. Description's optional. I'd like to either use the alt tag or title here. And file name. And file name's important because we can again use the city and county names here. And these are all things that may help, for example, on a Google image search. We'll select location city name followed by location county name. We also have the option here for EXIF metadata. So because we are working with latitudes and longitudes and building locations, I can select the latitude keyword here, the longitude keyword here. And once again, this would be attributed to the generated image. Before we go ahead and generate this test, we will need to go back to the plugin settings, and on the integrations tab, scroll down to Gemini, because this is the particular dynamic element we're using for images. And you'll see that we need to enter both an API key and select an image model. In this example, I'm going to use the 2.5 flash image preview, which is at the time of recording Gemini's newest image model known as Nano Banana. I'll scroll down and click save and navigate back to our content group. We can go ahead and click the content group tab and we'll generate a test. In a few moments, our test has been generated, and if we scroll down to the healthcare section, we can now see that we have a high quality resolution image based on the prompt that we gave. At this point, I'm happy with the test content. It looks good. It ticks all the boxes for what I'm looking for. I can now go ahead, and I like to delete the generated content. This will delete that test that we've been producing. And then we'll go ahead and click generate via browser. With our generation complete, we can go ahead and look at some of these pages to see the results. You can see we have the location keywords have been replaced, and same for the county. We have all of our content here. We have an image and so on. If we view the site's pages, we now have our total of 109, so the 107 location pages that we generated, plus that home page and contact page that we manually produced at the start of the video. If we navigate to the website, we can see that we have the home page and contact us in the menu, but from here there's no way to access those pages. And this is what we refer to as interlinking, or in Page Generator Pro, we call it related links. And related links are critical to ensure that search engines and your site visitors can find your generated content. A common issue that we see is that users will generate these pages, submit them to the search engines, and then expect them to immediately rank. This can't happen if there's no way to navigate to those pages as a person. In order to do this, Page Generator Pro provides the related links dynamic element, and we'll go ahead and demonstrate how this works. We'll edit our homepage, and if I scroll down, I want to find a suitable section to link to these pages. So let's go ahead and perhaps above this section, I'd like to put a list of areas that we serve. We'll go ahead and reuse our testimonial section. So I've gone ahead and added an areas we serve section. And if I use the plus icon and search for related links, you'll see we have this dynamic element here. And if we click this, on the right hand side, we have a number of search parameters. And these tell the related links dynamic element which pages to list and link to based on the criteria we provide. So in this example, we want to link to the generated pages from our group. So if I start typing the group name, you see that I get my applicable matches come up here. I'll select the group, and you'll see that an ID appears. And instantly we can see here a preview of those links. Now this is a little bit wordy, a little bit repetitive. It's also not very user friendly to navigate. But if we scroll down to the output section, we can now configure how this looks. So for example, if I want this to be in multiple columns, I can go ahead and change the column number. We can see here that we get that in columns. I think a 3-column layout would be quite nice here. I can also change the link title. So this is a little bit wordy because by default, related links will show the generated page's title, which may be longer than what we want in a link. We do have documentation on how to do this, but essentially we can use the percentage sign and then custom underscore field. underscore followed by the name of the keyword. So in this example, if I just want to list the cities as the titles, I would go ahead and type location underscore city name with a closing percentage. And we can see there that now we have a 3-column layout with all of the city names, and clicking these would link to each of those generated pages. I could also include the county name. So we'll do comma, percentage mark, custom underscore field underscore, and then location, county name. And we can see there that we have the city and county names now listed. If we view the home page, we can now scroll down and we have a really nice list of links there. This now allows search engines and visitors to find their location, for example, this one, and click on it, and it takes them through to that generated page. It's also good practice to have links within those generated pages. For example, I may have come from the search engine as a visitor searching for a location in Monroe County, but I might have landed on the wrong city page, and I'm wondering whether the business offers services in the particular city or town that I'm in. To do this, we can again use related links by editing the content group. And once again, above the statistics section, we'll go ahead and create a related link section. So we'll do other cities served in the county name. I will remove this grid here, and instead of this paragraph, I'll go ahead and use the related links dynamic element. Once again, I'll begin searching for it and select the content group that I'm working on. Make sure that our post type is set to what we generated, so pages. And again, for output, I will do the same as I did on the homepage related links. So I want 3 columns and a link title like that. But most importantly, I want to restrain these to only display other cities in the county that we are currently viewing. To do this, I can go down to the custom field section and click add. And this is a way of adding a constraint to related links. So the meta key will be the keyword, in this case, location underscore county underscore name. And I want to be an exact match, so equals, and the value must be the current county name that we are on. You'll notice that when we work with the link title and custom fields here, we are specifying quite specific meta keys, and these derive from the content group's store keywords functionality. So by default, this is checked and enabled. And what this does is it will store these location keywords within each of the generated pages. If we edit one of these pages, we can see how the keyword data has been stored within the page's custom fields. And so when I was referencing location underscore county underscore name, it's because I know the software will take the location keyword, it will put all of the information in this field called location, and it will also have each of the individual columns listed as well. So if you're ever wondering what precise custom field to use for a constraint, you can come into here, one of your existing generated pages, find the data you're looking for. So I want to constrain by county name. You could copy that, go into your content group, and you can paste it here. We'll save our content group, and then if we scroll down, we'll go ahead and generate. A quick word on generation, because we've already generated our pages. If you remember earlier in the video, we had the overwrite setting set to yes if the existing page is generated by this group. And we've also instructed the software to overwrite everything on those generated pages. So what this will do now is it will go and overwrite those existing generated pages to include what we've got in this content group, which is mainly this change with the addition of related links. So we'll click generate via browser, and we can see in the log that we get the word updated as page with permalink already generated by this group. So the first time we did this, it said created, and now because we've already generated those pages, it's telling us that it sees that the pages are there, it's going to update them for us with these new changes. So with our pages generated, let's go ahead and look at one of them by clicking the link. And in this case, we are in a city page for Charlotte County. And if we scroll down, we can see that we have the links for the other cities that are served in that county, which is fantastic. If we go to Palm Beach County based page and scroll down, again, we can see here we have the applicable other cities. One thing you'll notice as well is that we don't include the link to the page that we are currently viewing. because we don't want there to be what we would call a circular link that doesn't take the user to another place. But overall, this is a great way to enable interlinking within your site. If we go back to the start of our video, we explored the structure of the website that we're building. Our fourth and final section is the search pages, and these are search terms that your prospects or site visitors might be looking for on search engines such as Google, and we want to try and capture some of that web traffic. A great way to do this is in Google to search for a key phrase. Here we're using in-home healthcare Florida. And towards the bottom of the results, we can see what other terms people are searching for. And I like to take a copy of these and go ahead and add these as a new keyword. We'll call it search terms. And I could repeat this process for other common searches that people are looking for, and ultimately build a list of possibly 10, 20, 30 different terms that we think your prospects are searching for. You can also apply your own business knowledge to these terms to make them more relevant as necessary. We'll go ahead and save this. And then if we navigate to our content group, we can take a duplicate of our location content group, because we're going to create a second separate group purely to build pages that attempt to rank for these specific search terms. So we can click the duplicate option here, and we see we're told it's a copy. And we can go ahead and start editing this content group. Now, there's no prescribed formula for this, but the idea is to have a simple page that has the title, which will be the search term, some AI generated content, and then we're going to follow it up with related links to our location pages as well as information about our business. So we'll start by changing the title to search terms. I like the first section to directly answer the phrase or question that's being asked. So again, we'll put the title in here. And instead of having the paragraph, we'll go ahead and insert an AI dynamic element. So here I've gone ahead and entered a topic, instructing AI to write an SEO friendly article surrounding the search term. So in our topic, we can always include keywords as well. And this is useful to generate content that has some real context to what we're looking at. And in the instructions, I've told AI to include information at the end about our business and how we can be contacted. Remember, we've got that instruction in the integration settings that applies to all of our AI dynamic elements, so we don't need to repeat key information here. I will now make some further edits by removing these buttons, and we're going to take out some of these sections here that we don't need. And for this section, I will enter some content, so about the business. You could go ahead and put information here. We'll keep this short and sweet for the time being. Obviously, you could put more detail. And this doesn't matter if this short piece of content is repetitive, because we've got AI dynamic content here. And the goal is that we funnel visitors from the search engines onto this page. They get an answer to their question that they were searching for. They continue to scroll down and they can see about the business that we operate, and then they can move on to other places that are served, followed by our statistics, testimonials, and a call to action. So we won't need this section here. We can go ahead and remove that. We also need to update our SEO data, as we're no longer using a location keyword. So I'll replace this with search terms, followed by best home healthcare agency in Florida. The slug will be replaced by the permalink setting in the content group, so that isn't important. And again, for the meta description, we can use the same as the title. For my description internally, I'm going to call this search query pages. And for the permalink, we just want to use search terms, so it matches the title. We don't have any location data here, so we're going to remove the geolocation data. I'll perform a final check walking through the group. You can see here that I'm missing my related links dynamic element, so we'll go ahead and add that. And we want this to list the areas that we serve, so we'll go ahead and use the location content group, specify pages. I've gone ahead and configured this to be the same as we did earlier in the tutorial, where we've got the city name and county name as well. As always, I like to then first of all produce a test. And when we view our test, we can see that we've got our AI generated content, and we have the final section here talking about our business and our commitment. And we can see here that those global instructions were included because it includes our contact number as well. Then we have information about the business, the areas that we serve, followed by the statistics, testimonials, and a call to action. If I'm happy with everything, I can now go ahead and click Generate via Browser. And we can see that our content is generated and we have our search term pages. Again, we're going to need to ensure that these pages are accessible through some internal linking. And because they are quite generic terms and we haven't got many of them, what I like to do is put them in the footer of the website. So if we go ahead and in this example, edit the footer, I'm going to duplicate my column here and call this resources. And instead of having these paragraphs, I can go ahead and add a block. And once again, we can use related links. This time I will use the search terms group and specify the post type that we generated, which were pages. And we can see on screen here that we now have the links there. I'll go ahead and tweak the output. I think 2 columns would look quite nice. We will remove this navigation column here. And I think that's a nicer look as it gives it a bit more width. And again, if I exit back to WordPress homepage and scroll down, we've then got some useful resources. And if we click one of these, it takes us through to that page. And again, this is so that the search engines, when they crawl through the site, they can see that there are links interlinking to that content. And that's another way to help with that indexing on the search engines. We hope you found this tutorial video useful. It's difficult to cover everything that Page Generator Pro can do for your website. So we do recommend reviewing our documentation. We have other dynamic elements that you may wish to use, for example, Google Maps or some Wikipedia data, as well as Yelp business listings and YouTube. We also have other image dynamic elements as well as AI. As mentioned earlier in this video, if you have a page builder of choice that you prefer to use, such as Elementor or Divi, you can refer to our documentation for some specific setup steps. These are typically one time, and you can then go ahead and use that within the content groups. We also have a number of other tutorials depending on your use case, and we'd recommend looking at our YouTube playlist. This is a pretty comprehensive deep dive into the functionality that we've covered. So if there's anything that you've seen in today's video that you'd like to understand more about, whether that be Spintax, dynamic elements, the publish options, etc., we do have individual videos that cover those in a deeper level.